That's brand priming.
Mm-hmm.
That brand priming is the gravity of the massive planet. Brand priming is just a fancy word that somebody came up with for courtship.
Mm-hmm.
It's when you're in courtship mode. You want to win the attention of this person, and then you want to cause them to enjoy when you show up. And they perk up a little bit when they see you coming because it's always pleasant. And then the next thing you know, the relationship is deeper, and the next thing you know, the relationship, and then you have a life partner. And then you're married, and you're having kids and grandkids. But it all began with that courtship. Now, mass media and brand priming is courtship, one person at a time, all simultaneously.
Advertising is a tax you pay for not being remarkable. Welcome to Todd Liles and the Wizard of Ads, a podcast for business owners who want to become remarkable. Teflon Todd Liles is going to take you deep into the mind of Roy H. Williams, the Wizard of Ads, to unleash the timeless truths and secret strategies that have helped him build dozens of America's most successful businesses. Do you want to build a brand that wins the heart, captures the mind, and creates lasting relationships? Take a deep breath and buckle up. It's time to fly.
All right, listeners, welcome back. This is episode 2 of a 4-part mini-series that I have here with my guest, Jake Williams. Thank you for being here, Jake.
Glad to be here.
And Roy, as always, thank you for being here. So in the last episode, it got really interesting. We did what will often happen when we find something that's worth exploring. We'll go off our guided trail, and we will pave a new one. And it was totally fine for doing that. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to pick back up where we were. So in the last episode, we painted the picture as to why so many people really leaned in to the concept of Google's zero moment of truth, which basically means buying into paper ad clicks, walked away from what some might call old traditional media, but we don't see it that way. We see it as radio, TV, things that still work. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to pick up the conversation and now explain why it's worth actually doing. We're going to be talking about some concepts and then proving with facts why radio, TV, relational ads are actually affordable and they make a lot of sense. So, Jake, if you would, I would love to just come here and let you pick it up. Share this. You've got this graph up here on the screen. By the way, listeners, this might be one that you might also want to check out on YouTube. We will do our best to verbally describe what we see. But, Jake, take us through what you have up here on the screen for us to look at.
Sure. And so a lot of what I'm going to be saying is saying similar things from different perspectives with different language. And my goal is to synthesize all the various experts and their particular jargon so that you don't have to trust one person with one opinion. Mm-hmm. And if I do my job correctly, I will get a constellation where I can connect all the dots and you can see, oh, that's Orion. And so this is talking about performance marketing, and it's talking about how marketing budgets have skewed towards performance marketing. So this is from WARC, and that's the language they're using.
Performance marketing being immediate response, easily measured.
So Les Binet and Peter Field would call it short-term sales activation, to oversimplify. And we would call it stuff you can easily do on Google with a pay-per-click budget or Meta. And so it's anything that is happening immediately to generate a sale today. And it's more in the realm of online spend than offline spend. And so
now the word WARC, is that an acronym or is that a reference to a trade magazine?
So WARC is a group that partners with a whole bunch of different experts. And so they will interview people like the System 1 people. They have a whole bunch of folks where they're trying to be more mature and methodical in studying marketing effectiveness and releasing it out. So that we aren't all just kind of making assumptions, but it's more data-driven. So WARC and good.
And what I'm doing is I'm playing the part of the listener who maybe they just called this episode, they didn't catch episode 1.
Right.
System 1 thinking. What is System 1 thinking in a nutshell?
Okay, so System 1 and System 2 thinking That's Daniel Kahneman. Roy's going to be able to explain it in better, more granular detail than I can. But the premise of a System 1 decision is that it's a fast decision, it's easy to make, and you're trusting your gut. And most of the decisions that you make throughout the day is System 1 thinking. It's not agonizing. It's not a lot of rational kind of pros and cons and weighing and research. It's just, this is what my intuition's telling me to do in this moment. And that is kind of low friction and high emotion. System 2 thinking is more methodical, it's more analytical, it's less heart, it's more mind, and it requires you to evaluate with a microscope kind of every nuance of the trade-offs before you can commit to a decision. And so if we talk about some of the language you two have used in the past, transactional buyers are going to largely be using System 2 thinking, where they are logically analyzing the trade-offs, and they tend to be low conversion rate, low average sale, low profit margin. They're lousy leads. So going back to episode 1, you want fewer transactional buyers with System 2 thinking. You want more relational buyers with System 1 thinking. The relational buyers willing to spend more to avoid regretting a decision, and they do it not actually based on who's the best, but who they feel the best about.
So here's the deal. Jake said I would be more granular. So actually, no. I'm going to be a little bit more plain. If you look at System 1, it's gut feeling, it's hunch, it's instinct, your belief. Your belief might be wrong, but it's what you believe, okay? System 2 is suspicion, fear, and doubt. Now, he called it scientific. If you want to be polite, call it scientific. It's suspicion, fear, and doubt, okay? Now, science by definition is suspicion and doubt, okay? Prove it. Not necessarily fear, but suspicion and doubt. So scientific is fair. But I just want you, it's basically System 1 is what you actually believe. You already believe this. And there's the tiniest little bit of confirmation of what you already believe, you're sold. Now, people who don't believe anything, they think that everybody's a crook, and I'm going to look for the cheapest of all the crooks. So when they have doubt and suspicion, I'm totally serious. When they say, I'm full of doubt, I'm full of suspicion, and I'm going to hold these guys accountable, and I'm going to get a written contract, and I'm going to get a written guarantee. And so none of those things are wrong necessarily, but it's a low conversion rate. It's a huge pain in the ass. It's not going to be much profit. And all of your problems comes from the people that had fear, suspicion, and doubt. And the delightful, lovely relationships are the people who believed in you from the beginning because they just like who you are and what you stand for. And so System 1, if you win the heart, System 1. The mind, System 2 will follow.
Yes.
Because the heart, the mind, System 2, will always accept whatever logic it takes because the heart has already decided.
They can justify it.
So they can justify it, yeah.
So Jake, I'm going to ask a question because we're on this study that Work did, and they referred to something called the advertisement doom loop.
Right.
And going off of your description and then Roy's description where we talk about suspicion and people buying cheaply and System 2 being essentially sort of the pay-per-click responses, I want you to unpack the advertisement doom loop because it just seems to suggest that it would be System 2, but maybe it's not.
No.
So what is it?
I'm glad you said it. So we're starting to intersect different bodies of research, different jargon, and over the course of, if you watch all 4 episodes, all 4 of them, you'll see the greater whole. So the advertisement doom loop, according to Work, is people who have shifted too much money into performance, and they have taken that away from long-term brand building. And it goes back to what we talked about in the first episode of attribution. And so if you see here on the screen, the doom loop, if you start shifting your budget to a performance format and you're doing stuff that works today immediately and you're not really planting seeds for next year and the future, you are going to eventually see that your advertising performance plateaus because you're not planting seed corn, you're eating seed corn. And next year, it's harder to squeeze equity out of the brand because you didn't invest in building that equity. right? You were not planting seeds, you were eating and harvesting. And so to simplify this, I'm saying there's a 60-40 split you guys have talked about in the past, where 60% of your messages and of your budget should be spent in planting seeds long term for the future, and 40% of your budget should be spent on sales activation, capturing crops and eating them today. And if you balance that correctly, you have enough money to do everything you need to do this year, and you have more buyers next year because you were patient and you planted more than you harvested. And so the advertisement doom loop, according to Work, is people who get that wrong. And they spend too much money on performance formats, the payback plateaus, and they're optimizing, this is important, against faulty metrics. So what we talked about last time, when you have 190% overestimate on how well your paid search is performing, and you have a 90% underestimate on how well your TV campaign is performing, people who are in a panic because their advertising isn't working any better, they double down on the thing that they think works the best, but actually is the thing that is the least efficient for them in the long run. And so therein you create the loop. Panic foments worse decisions, foments future panic, and it's all because they don't understand the missing link. That's brand priming. That's getting out of talking to those system two thinkers. It's getting out of attracting those lousy transactional buyers that have fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And you never took the time to understand how to cultivate relationships and brand priming to attract relational buyers and plant those seeds.
You know, I'm going to give an analogy here, but I need to explain it a little bit because I'm sitting here thinking about the person that is so attracted to the scorecards, and you said they're looking at the wrong metrics, right? Because what they're not taking into consideration is how the long brand priming and the long relational marketing is having an effect on it, and they're looking for an answer. They're going, "How do I know that this is affecting my overall results?" And in science, in the medical field. Now, I'm going to use science in this scenario, which we know system 2, but I'm actually going to use it to prove a point. In the medical field and in astrophysics, one of the things that they know is that when they're looking at the observation of planets, like they're taking a look, they're looking at Jupiter, they're looking at Saturn, and they're going, wow, these planets are acting funny. They're doing something that isn't explainable why. And we're talking 120 years ago, right? Maybe even further than that. Really smart people like Isaac Newton. You know, Isaac Newton just sat around one day and realized that he had a problem with the way that the moon was rotating around the earth and created calculus to answer the question of what he saw and what he understood, but didn't have the math for it. Did you know that's how it was created?
I did not know that.
Yeah, so he just created it to describe mathematically what he observed. So really smart people are seeing this interplay that's occurring and going, something's going on, and they predict, oh, there must be another planet. We just haven't found it yet. They could realize the presence of Uranus and Neptune without seeing them. So there are mathematical formulas. I don't know what they are, but there are definitely real mathematical formulas to where you put the planet of long-term relationship marketing out there, and it's having this massive influence. You're seeing your branded keywords going down, 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 and you go, I don't really know why it's occurring, but everybody else is taking credit for it. Now remove the planet and see what happens. Same thing in medicine. Some things can't be directly measured. They have to be indirectly measured. And then they realize going, okay, we know what's going on. The brain's a great example of this. It is so resistant to chemical change that they do their very, very best to get information. About the only way they really, really, really know what's going on in the brain would be an actual physical biopsy. But nobody just wants to get a physical biopsy of their brain to know what's going on chemically. So they have to do these other things to defer. And I think that's the problem that a lot of people are having, is that the work that is being done with groups like The Wizard is like a gravitational body that is sitting out. Now, the difference is we are having a very clear influence. You can hear it, you can see it. But to the digital marketing weasel, they choose to be blind to it. They don't want to accept that it's out there, and they want to take credit for what relational work is doing.
I do quickly want to just acknowledge, I'm glad that you mentioned this. Andrew Tyndall, he recently created the book, part of why I've got way too much to talk about in too little time, The Creative Dividend. And you see here figure 3, low confidence marketers rely more on reporting short-term digital metrics. And everything you're seeing is a term that has terms under it and terms under it and terms under it. But the idea here being high confidence marketers are seeing more business results, right? And they're less focused on short-term digital metrics. And so there is a need to have a more sophisticated understanding of the movement of the planets, right, and what's driving all this observable patterns. In the same way with brand building and sales activation, there's more going on underneath the surface than is readily apparent in a single dashboard.
We've been talking about detecting that a planet exists based upon the effect it has on all the observable planets. And we don't know where that planet is. We've never discovered that planet yet, but it's evidently there because the gravity of this thing is so big, it's affecting all the courses of all these other things, okay? So let's talk about what that is. What is this powerful gravity of this massive planet that they hadn't discovered yet because it's so far away? But the gravity was so huge. It's pulling all of these other things out of shape.
That's right.
Okay.
Elliptical orbits and what have you.
That's brand priming. That brand priming is the gravity of the massive planet. Brand priming is just a fancy word that somebody came up with for courtship. It's when you're in courtship mode. You want to win the attention of this person, and then you want to cause them to enjoy when you show up. And they perk up a little bit when they see you coming because it's always pleasant. And then the next thing you know, the relationship is deeper, and the next thing you know, the relationship, and then you have a life partner. And then you're married, and you're having kids and grandkids. But it all began with that courtship. Now, mass media and brand priming is courtship, one person at a time, all simultaneously. See, as a matter of fact, it was actually David Ogilvy who said there's no such thing as national advertising. All advertising is individual. There is one woman cooking dinner at her stove, listening to the television while her family is watching it in the other room. And he says when you understand that the person you're reaching in that moment is this infinite number of individual people doing an infinite number of individual things. He says, but so the ad ran nationwide, but it reached people one at a time in their own private little world. And it's courtship, courtship on a massive scale. And that's brand priming. And that's this huge gravity that pulls everything else, the orbit of every other media in a different shape. And everybody goes, well, how do you measure it? Yeah, I don't know.
Well, and so I really want to...
Growth of the company is how you measure it.
Well, that's how we measure, yes, gross revenue. I wanted to go back to the theory of the typical business owner and what they're experiencing. And so this notion of courtship, patience, why aren't more people doing this? Number one, it takes time to work. Number two, it's harder to measure. But I do want to emphasize there is this recalcitrance, there's this suspicion. We talk about the system two, thinking, the doubt and all the rest. There is a felt need for a lot of home service business owners, if we go to the idea of not just quantity of leads, but quality of leads. Part of what I wanted to talk about in episode 2 is lead quality rises when courtship increases. And so the idea is McGraw-Hill magazines put out a legendary print ad. I think this was in the 1950s. And it's a grumpy man with a bow tie sitting in a chair, looks like an accountant, and his hands are clasped with this scowl on his face. And he's saying, I don't know who you are. I don't know your company. I don't know your company's product. I don't know what your company stands for. I don't know your company's customers. I don't know your company's record. I don't know your company's reputation. Now, what was it you wanted to sell me? Bottom. Moral. Sales start before your salesman calls with business publication advertising. So in the 1950s, they had the same problem that we have now, which is if you wait too long to start talking to people, you can only compete on price, and it's a very hard sales conversation to have. And so brand priming, and what we're about to talk about, is recognizing that most people actually have a short list of folks that they would turn to for any given need. They have preferences. They have people that they've heard of in this space. And if they don't, obviously there's word of mouth. That's another thing we can start talking about with the parasocial relationship, is how to create a sense of known relational trust in these subsequent episodes.
Well,
go ahead.
I'm looking at that figure, and you're making an excellent point, and you started sending me back sort of like mentally in history. And Roy, I can't remember if you and I had this conversation or if I read it, and I said to myself, I need to log that conversation because I know Roy will be interested in this.
Right.
But the term marketplace.
Right.
Marketplace. Did you and I have the conversation about like where that original term came from when people would say like, I'll see you in the marketplace, I'll sell my goods and services in the marketplace?
No, but I have a marketplace story. Go ahead and tell me this thing.
So I don't remember where I was reading this from there, or maybe I was listening to it on a podcast, but when I heard it, it's like, I got to tell Roy. So we refer to the marketplace now as the general, economy where people go to sell things. Well, if you were to go back, before newspaper print, before all these other things, farmers, little ladies weaving, sweaters and whatnot, they would get their goods. And they would go to a central place, usually like downtown, like wherever the local city was. And we're talking 17, 16, 1800s, right? Even before then. Go all the way back to the times of Jesus. And they would bring their things down, and you would go to the marketplace. Mm-hmm. And you go to the marketplace, and these people know you. They're from your town. It's a small village. There's 1,000 people there if it's a big village. And in the marketplace, you're building a relationship. Mm-hmm. And you already have a relationship oftentimes. So the original marketplace were people selling to people who knew each other. They knew about your farm. They knew if you had good vegetables. They knew that when you baked bread, you used good ingredients, or if you put in some filler. They knew that your sweaters were going to last a long time. So the original marketplace was never transactional. It was always relational. Mm-hmm. And we have evolved, and you're showing me this old image from the 60s going, yeah, so at this point in time, we're sending out, direct mail response letters. People are starting to get away, are starting to move a little bit transactional. How big of a letter can I write and put in your mailbox? This was before, email. But then you have this example here where this guy's going, I don't know you. I've not seen you in the marketplace. Right. So, Roy, I want to hear your marketplace story.
Okay. Now, we don't need to bore everybody, but I've had a multi-relationship with a domain name broker at GoDaddy, and he's the greatest ever. And when I finally, after, I own a few thousand domain names, and I remember when I found this guy, after doing a bunch of different random ones, I said, can you just be my permanent guy? And I just call you directly. He said, sure. I got his number. So every conversation I have with him for 3 or 4 years now, I will, especially when I'm leaving a voicemail, says, you are the greatest domain broker on the face of the earth. Now, here's what happened. He called me. I was at lunch with some people, and I couldn't. I said, I can't talk right now, but go ahead and tell me what's going on. He was real excited. He goes, it actually happened. He said, Google has now given me this promotion, and they acknowledge I am the greatest domain broker on the face of the earth. And he says, my new job is to be the representative for these gigantic domain names to these gigantic Fortune 100 companies. Mm. And I said, really? And he said, yeah, what I want to talk to you about is, he said, I've got marketplace.com. Mm. And I've got a number of companies that might want to buy that. I said, how much? And how much do you think it is?
$1 million.
I was saying
easy.
7 figures.
$13 million.
Wow.
For marketplace.com. So when you said, this was like 2 days ago. Mm-hmm. Haven't called him back yet. But the point is, I'm thrilled for my friend because he deserves it. He is magical. He knows how to make stuff happen. He's very humble, soft-spoken, very kind of quiet. just very studious. He's a great listener. And if you give him clear instructions and a little bit of encouragement, and then just believe him when he gives you feedback and just work with him. I'm going, I've watched him do things that everybody goes, how did you get that bought? I've been trying to buy that for years. I'm going, well, I got the greatest domain broker in the whole world. And he gets through to people and he makes things happen when nobody else can get through to him. And so that's just a weird thing. You talk about marketplace. I'm going, that was the domain name, $13 million. Yeah.
I can extrapolate from that to where I was trying to go with the bridge of relationship.
Go for it.
And a business that has a transactional relationship with its customers is, to my view, not a business we want to work with. And it is tiresome. It's low profit margin, low average sale.
Well, say that again. What type of business do you not want to work with?
Those with a transactional relationship.
Gotcha.
And we're saying, in the case of your village and in the case of your media buyer, that it is a more relational approach to buying and selling.
Right.
And the best companies, in my view, are the ones that have a more relational approach with their customers. And so Apple, right, has a much more relational customer base than Lenovo, right? No one is a diehard Lenovo person. It's interchangeable with Dell and all these other PCs. And so if you want to be market dominant and have the best brand, the best profit margin, all of it, it comes back to, as Roy said, relationship. And so when thinking about some of the other new emerging studies that I wanted to get in front of you guys, so in this case, Oxford University teamed up with WPP Media and the Said Business School, and they were talking about, I think it was October of 2025, some analysis. They looked at 1.2 million consumer purchase journeys, and they were looking at what goes into who eventually gets the sale. And so brand priming was their terminology. Brand building is what Roy and I would typically say, but they define brand priming. There's a very system one in the Kahneman view of the powerful, often unconscious influence that shapes consumer decisions long before people start shopping. They've already been primed on what to buy. And what they are talking about in the priming stage is everyday life. So your plumbing is working, your air conditioner is working, but you're still being primed by some businesses to have thoughts, associations, feelings towards those companies, even though you don't need what they're selling right now, right? That's long-term brand building. That's a brand equity play. That's what we like to do. And so priming happens before the active stage of a trigger happens. Your sink has a leak or whatever. You need a new toilet installed. And we're saying performance marketing likes to talk to people in the active stage because they think targeting is the most important thing and tracking is the most important thing. And what they have forgotten is that most decisions are actually made before the active stage ever happens. And so here, Oxford came out and said 84% of purchases consist of people choosing brands they are already biased towards before they start shopping. They say most shoppers will already know which brands they're going to consider and will typically consider fewer than 3 brands and will end up choosing the brand they are most biased towards. This pattern holds across all categories, whether for infrequent high-value purchases like cars or white goods, or regular everyday shopping like toothpaste or soft drinks, with the proportion of primed shoppers never falling below 70%. So if we take the notion of 84% of purchases are going to the people who have done the brand priming, you can start to realize how desperate it feels to be one of the home service companies where all of your money is only spent in performance marketplaces like Google Ads, where you're reaching people who typed plumber near me. And so plumber near me is for someone who has not gotten a preferred provider. They don't have a branded search. They have not been primed to like and trust a plumber yet. And I'm saying the thing that you'd never want to be stuck with is an unbranded transactional buyer who is 16% of the population competing against your entire damn town. What you want to be is the one who gets the branded search from 84% of the population because you've been doing the priming. And so people vastly underestimated how much of the purchase decision was made before the activation, before the catalyst, before the pipes broke. And that is where things like Work's advertising doom loop come into play. Because what's easiest for the marketer to solve for and track is not, as Roy talks about, what goes into most typical decisions.
Well, I'm gonna bring this back full circle to our astrophysics example.
Okay.
Because we know that ideally you're somewhere around 60-40, right? 60% is building brand, 40% is activation. And to me, that almost sounds like going back to a planetary moon scenario. The planet is the thing that's producing the gravity well. It's the thing that's priming, to Jake's point, right? It's the thing that is influencing everything else. The moons around the planet are your other sources of advertisement. It's your sales activation. It's your pay-per-click. It's these other things. And the moment that those other things switch and become greater in mass, you have a chaotic system,
right?
And something's going to break, right?
Okay,
You got to have one center.
Let's
of
stick
mass.
with. Let's say that there's there's the Earth, but it has 5 moons, 5 small moons that circle around it. Okay, and so the big, heavy gravity planet is attracting customers, right? But now, what happens is one of these moons passes, and that's called sales activation. Now would be a really good time to do this. It's a seasonal offer. It's a specific item that might be useful right now. And so you're giving them an opportunity to say yes. And so sales activation is an offer, very straightforward offer, but direct response marketing is when you're going after a cold call customer and you're trying to take them all the way from the parting of the Red Sea to the promised land in one communication, okay? Sales activation is not what direct marketers do. Sales activation can only exist inside a brand campaign. First, you have the courtship, and you build the brand awareness and the brand attraction. Now the planet has gravity, and it's pulling you toward it. And then you come by 40% of the total ads, 40% of the total ads is a specific offer. And here's another, hey, here's a thing you should probably think about doing right now. And it has a price, and there's a window, and there's some logic, and there's credibility. Now, but why do you take that seriously? Because you like and trust these people.
Yep.
And what I'm saying is, so you can't have sales activation outside of a brand campaign. And so those moons that are coming by. So here you are on the Earth, and this moon comes by, and then another 40 days, 50 days later, bam, here goes another one. Different moon, different offer, different opportunity to say yes. And so that's what is kind of like you have this relationship. And go, hey, you want to go to dinner tonight? And they go, yeah, let's go do dinner tonight. Bam. That's a specific offer, a specific moment. And so every industry says we need 60% of all of our ads. This is healthy. This is the right thing to do. 60% of all of our ads are just building that relationship. The other 40% of our ads are coming by periodically with a specific offer, a specific opportunity that makes a lot of sense, and it's timely, and people go, yeah, that sounds good. Let's do that.
The thing I really like about this example, and then I'm going to come back to you, Jake, is that the bigger we make our gravity well, right? The more we reinvest into our planet, the more moons that we can put around it as well.
Yeah.
So we can keep adding. Like at one point,
Infinite number of offers.
We just got to grow our gravity well, and it kind of takes us back to what we talked about a little bit in the last episode. Is that's the hard part. Will you be patient enough to let your gravity well grow? You got a very good graph over here, budgeting the brand investment. I think it's going to go right into it. Walk us through this, Jake.
Yeah, so 60-40 is what Bennett and Field talked about. You guys have mentioned that in previous episodes, and that was 60% on long-term brand building, 40% on short-term sales activation, right? And so Work had a comparable thing that they put together talking about the balance to have what they call the multiplier effect. And as I said, I don't want to demonize sales activation. I don't want to belittle the role that things like search and pay-per-click and all these other things play. What I'm trying to do is I'm saying they took this good thing that Google figured out with Zmot way too far, and it became the only thing.
Right.
And what they have emphasized here is if you look, this is kind of red on the left, green in the middle, red on the right. And so if you take the good thing of performance too far, then you're now on the risk of doom loop, right? And that's what I've been warning against, is you attribute all your leads to online activities because most people are finding you through your website and through search and all these things.
When they
even if
decide
it's a
they
branded
want to buy, they
click.
find you online.
Right. And so that is what you have attributed the cause to, even though it might just be the fallacy of last click attribution, last touch attribution, right? Conversely, on the other end of the spectrum, if you do only brand building and there is no sales activation, you can potentially lose out on in-market buyers.
Mm-hmm.
And so the balance of both, what they're calling the green in the middle, they're suggesting work to 60% being kind of the ideal range for most brands to have equity-led emphasis. And so I want to call this out in the middle. There's one of these bullet points that you can easily mistake. It says search investment will vary by brand and category, but for most brands, spending more than 25% of budgets on search should be a red flag. We call this the search ceiling. And so when I talk to a typical $2 million air conditioning company or plumbing company, they're almost always, when they talk to me, spending a lot more than 25% of their ad budget on various types of search activity, right? And so the goal is, as we talked about, to wean them off of it so that they can start to have a more balanced diet. You're not only eating Snickers all day, every day. You're getting some of your vegetables and your meat and your whole grains and all the rest. And you can have some sweets and you can have, some simple carbs and sugars and all the rest. But you can't make that exclusively your advertising diet, just like you couldn't exclusively eat meat, I guess, unless you were paleo. But now we're getting into your territory.
I'm going to give you an example, a real world example from today, this morning. Okay. We talk a lot about building relationship, courtship, and then we talk about harvest, which is the sales activation. I am today, and probably will finish it late tonight or in the morning early, an ad for, I mentioned him a lot, Aaron Gaynor. Mm-hmm. I just love working with Aaron. He's amazing. And he said something to me last Friday. And I said, dude, is it okay for me to put this in an ad? He goes, well, of course. And he didn't bring it up because we were talking about ads. We were just talking about his deep concern for people. Mm-hmm. It's really a thing. And he says, my guys all know something. He said, it's a thing inside our company, and they know 100%. If you go to a home and you find a single mom, she's got 2 or 3 kids, you do not leave that house under any circumstances. She doesn't have hot water, you don't leave till she has hot water. Mm-hmm. Don't worry about anything else. Just make sure she has hot water. If she doesn't have heat in the winter, if she doesn't have air conditioning in the summer, you don't leave that house until you fix it. You get it fixed. And he said, and then we'll find out later if she can afford to pay us, and if so, how much she can afford. He goes, but you just do not leave. A single mom raising kids on her own, you just don't leave her without basic, quality of life. And I said, was your mom single and had 3 kids? And he goes, yeah. He goes, and he goes, I lived that life. I know how hard it is. And he goes, I am never. And my guy goes, we just don't never let him down. Now, here's the thing. Mm-hmm. I said, Aaron, I'm going to tell the world that. I'm going to do it in a really elegant way, and it's not going to be tacky. And I said, most people wouldn't let me. Do you know why? Oh, everybody's just going to tell me they're a single mom so they can get to work for cheap or for free or something. I'm going, so everybody gets paranoid. They go to that suspicious doubt, the fearful brain we were talking about, mm-hmm. and they go to that scientific brain. Oh, here's what could happen to me if I told that story. And he goes, yeah, I'm not worried about it. And I said, I know you're not. And I said, because you know that the vast majority of people who are not struggling, they're going to go, God, I love this guy. I love this guy. I love the fact that he's less worried about getting paid than he is about making sure that that woman and her kids have what they have to have. And he goes, so yeah, he goes, my guys all know this. And he says, it's like, they don't even call. It's like, you fix it. And if I found out how you went and fixed something and we're going to let her pay $10 a month for the next, whatever, he just doesn't care. Mm-hmm. And I'm going, and I'm going to tell him and say, I'm going to write it's a dialogue between 2 people, and his sidekick, Jerry, is going to be asking me these questions. He's going to answer the question. And so it is courtship. It is customer bonding, but it's 60 seconds. It's radio ad. So you know who else is going to be in there? The examples of some of the products and services and systems we have that are affordable even for people in that kind of a circumstances. We actually have basic stuff that is really good, but no bells, no whistles, but it will heat your house, cool your house, heat your water, and we can do that at these prices. And the reason we make sure we have that basic entry-level stuff available, but it's good entry-level stuff, is so we don't leave anybody out.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, how do you not love that person? Do you know what I mean? Customer bonding with details, with examples, and he puts himself at risk and makes himself vulnerable by publicly admitting, hey, in that situation, and it's like, oh my God, you're going to get called by every poor woman in the city and you're going to be losing all this money because you're having to, people are scamming you. And he's just going, all right, so be it. And I'm going, it takes astounding courage.
It does.
And I could tell people exactly what to do. Do you know how many people that are listening right now that would actually do it?
Not many.
None. I've been doing this too many years. And anytime somebody does something really remarkable, everybody else talks themselves out of it because they go, oh, this could happen, that might work in his town, it would never work in my town. And so I've learned I can actually share some pretty detailed stuff publicly because everybody will talk themselves out of it. Nobody will copy it.
Yeah. You know, it reminds me in part of a guarantee that used to be promoted back in the old clockwork systems, and I can remember the moment it stopped being promoted, but it was essentially the guarantee that said if you were unhappy for any reason whatsoever, and it doesn't matter what the reason was, let us know and we'll either fix it for free or we'll give you all of your money back if we can't fix it, up to replacing it, right? And that was so very powerful. And so many salespeople that I had trained used that guarantee. And where it always started at was working at a company that really stood behind it. And they'd always do the same thing, Roy. Oh, someone's going to lie. And well, yeah, someone is. And then we would go up and we'd do the math and go, let's just do the math on this. And I'd go, what's your average ticket now? They'd give me the average ticket. Do you think that if we add all these guarantees and warranties that your average ticket would go up? Do you think that you could increase? And they were like, absolutely. Why? Well, it's worth more. So, okay, so what's your profit going to go up by? Because you're gaining an increase off real value with no added cost.
Right.
And then we go, now what do you think your closing percentage will go up by? And then they're always very modest, $500, 10%. But you math out $500 and 10% over the course of all of your sales for a year, it's a lot of money. And they go, how many of these do you think will quite possibly come back to haunt you? And then you really challenge them. They're always like, well, maybe 3%. Well, you do 3%, and it's substantially less than the additional profit by a magnitude factor of what they're going to get.
Another real true life example, still a client. 30 years ago, Kessler's Diamonds in Wisconsin and Michigan, that got 9 stores now. We started with 1. And Richard Kessler said, I'm going to make this guarantee bulletproof, 32-word guarantee in writing, no loopholes, just the strongest guarantee in America. And he did. And everybody goes, that can't be true. That's a scam. Nope. He said, do you think we can do this? And I said, okay, do the math. What do you think it's going to cost you to live up to that guarantee this year? And he goes, okay, I would want to set aside like maybe $84,000. It could be that bad. It's $84,000. It's going to cost me to live up to this guarantee. And so we did the math, and I said, I'll tell you what. I'll take the $84,000 out of the ad budget. Because with $84,000 less dollars in the ad budget, if I have that message, we're going to take over the world.
Yep.
Do you know what the actual cost that first year was? $17,000.
Okay.
Wow.
Cost us 17, we budgeted 84. Now we've been doing this for 30 years. The company now does like $60 million a year. We started at $650,000 a year. It is the fastest growing, most high profit, privately owned jewelry company in America by a long shot. And here's what's crazy. We have publicly shared all the details. Here's the guarantee. Here's the way it's worded. This is the data over 30 years of what it costs to honor that guarantee. No questions asked, right? Like the guarantee you're talking about. Not one person has ever done it. Not one person has ever done it. And we've built them. We're promising you.
I want to land a thought here. Because one of the big things that always comes up is how do I switch from pure transactional to relational? And one of the methods that people aren't considering is just how powerful service and our guarantees are as a relational brand priming tool. And if you're sitting over here and it's you, it's your wife, and it's one other person, you are a company of 3. And you only get 4 to 6 opportunities a day. You can come up with little things and little promises that the cost is 100% on you, but the reality is making it true is also 100% on you. It's in your power. And you can set this overwhelming wow experience one customer at a time. And that absolutely will, if you go, hey, I'm actually worth it, so I'll go ahead and raise my prices a little bit. I'll do something amazing one customer at a time. I'll give promises that I'll stand behind, and you stand behind them. That's how you start making the transition. You don't actually have to spend a penny, but you can start doing it by service. But you got to start somewhere.
No question. In other words, you can do it in small ways.
Small ways.
I've always done things in big ways because I'm an ad guy. You've worked with smaller companies and done things in small ways and let them incrementally, it could be a private offer made in-home, right? Verbally. And if you live up to it, word spreads, and you get big enough, and now you can make the offer publicly, right? I get that. And what I'm saying is you can make a bigger difference with a small company than I can, because you start at the grassroots, the very, very face-to-face kind of communications, and then I mean this, and then delivering what it is you say.
Well,
and I'm going, I have to start with somebody that has enough happening that they can make a public thing, because talking to the world is bigger than a 3-man company.
Well, the reason why I'm giggling is our company's sitting here at 15 years. We're doing several millions of dollars a year. We're very profitable. And I'm sitting in the studio, and Jake, you said, what, you got about 100,000 in here? And I'm going, yeah, probably that. Maybe less, maybe more. Consider manpower, it's definitely more. Alex is sitting over there at the ones and twos.
Talking about in the studio.
The wheels and stills. We're in the studio here. But when I launched Service Excellence, I painted a wall in my garage green, and I went down to Home Depot and picked up 2 lights that had the nearest white color that I could possibly have, right? And it had like a little $200 camcorder, and I was uploading videos to YouTube. My whole budget was maybe $300.
Right.
But I would say, hey, what question do you have? Let me know. And people would submit questions, and I'd shoot them a little video, and I'd put it on YouTube. And it was cheesy, and it was lame, and yet somehow it was very effective.
It worked.
Well,
it worked.
And so both of you guys have got my mind moving at a rapid pace, but I'm going to go to the statement of a through line in what both of you are saying is who you're in relationship with, and do you want to be in a relationship with that person, right? And so the cost of relational marketing is you have to deliver an experience that lives up to the expectations we set.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
so Roy and I at the Wizard of Ads will say on our website, we're only good for 1 out of 3 businesses as a potential fit, and that's an overestimate. By the time you get to our site, it's probably accurate, but we cannot promise to relational buyers that you're going to deliver this experience up here, and then it is actually down there. And a lot of this comes back to the business owner, and a lot of this comes back to what he or she believes, what they do, what they set as an example. So the culture, the experience, tying back into the story, and Ray Sigurn's whole flywheel of story sells experience that's delivered by culture. And if you have any of those out of alignment, you can't go very far. I wanted to emphasize that the relational buyer is willing to spend more money in order to avoid the regrettable experience. And so to your statement, Roy, on the notion of people who are willing to buy the diamond with the better guarantee, they know that probably is a little bit higher cost, but it's a trade-off they're willing to make. So that's why the relational buyers typically are higher conversion rate, higher average sale, higher profit margin. They're impossible to get in a one-night stand. Going back to our earlier statement, they can only be gotten through courtship. They can also only be gotten through quality. And so that's part of why we're buddies, is because you help up the quality of the culture and the experience such that it can live up to the story that you put out there in the world. And so that is the other thing when we're talking about why people aren't doing this more often with a brand equity play, with relational buyers, with brand priming, with attracting the kinds of really profitable customers. Those people require the business to be run effectively, have that service mindset. And if they don't deliver the kind of service that people are expecting, no amount of advertising is going to make this pay off in the long run.
Yeah.
And so it's both avoiding the chickening out period, marshaling your forces from a media buy effectively, but also training your people and having all of it work in tandem.
Be the company they were expecting you to be.
Exactly.
When you promise them something, deliver that. Because if you're not the company that they expected to show up at their door, there's a disconnect and you're not going to make it. You have to be the company you say you are.
Very good. Well, listeners, this is going to wrap episode 2. Jake has much more content to share with us in episodes 3 and in 4. So I want you to go back and listen to 1. If you haven't listened to 1, let us know how you're enjoying this one, and then tune in next week and the following week. So, Jake, Roy, thank you again for another great episode. I'm excited about doing the next one.
Likewise. Thanks.
You've been listening to Teflon, Todd Liles, and the Wizard of Ads, where the bold win and the remarkable reign. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to like, subscribe, and follow so you never miss a conversation. If you want a copy of the show notes or watch the ads from today's show, head over to toddliles.com/wizard. This episode is dedicated to the business owners who refuse to be ordinary.